This whole process was horrific. I had already gone a year before signing the NDA and had refused to sign. The second time I went, I had no support, no legal representation, and faced an adjudicator who made disparaging comments about my motivation and pressured me to sign.
The company, the union, and I met for what I thought was arbitration, but when we gathered, the arbitration never started. I said no to mediation and no to an NDA for more than 8 hours. After 9.5 hours, I was broken. I wanted to go home. I was hungry. I was tired. I was traumatized. So I signed the NDA.
I agreed to hide a part of myself that needs to be healed. I live small because I feel I am not worth justice.
I was not given any time to negotiate the NDA. My PTSD became worse. I experienced anxiety and made 2 suicide attempts. I never returned to full-time employment, and my 10-plus year career as a skilled tradeswoman ended.
I tried to break my way out of the NDA. I thought if I break it before I'm even given any money, then I just won't receive the money, and that will be that. I didn't care about the money, but the NDA made me feel dirty and gross. The day the NDA was foisted on me, it felt like non-consensual sex. It felt like an assault. I felt violated. I felt like the NDA covered me in filth, and I wanted desperately to get it off of me.
Why does the legal system and many of our institutions continue to be so ignorant? The answer is simple. It's because they continue to protect abusers. I don't need to prove abusers are protected. In fact, I have physical evidence in the form of my non-disclosure agreement from 1997. A quarter century later, I still can't speak a great deal of truth about my own childhood.
As a Black woman, I had relinquished the right to speak my truth, to reach out to and support other Black employees who were experiencing the same racist treatment that I faced. After I signed the NDA, I overdosed. After that, the world felt like a darker and more cynical place.
I refused the settlement offer and insisted on going to arbitration. Partway through that process, and more than a year after my termination, I was again offered an agreement which I insisted I did not want for fear of the consequences. The agreement included an NDA and financial compensation. Over several weeks, my union rep and their lawyer repeatedly pressured me to accept and sign that agreement, suggesting the grievances could be withdrawn if I didn't. The lawyers and the union rep controlled the entire thing.
From my perspective, it was a tactic to get me to quit. I regret not seeking legal advice earlier. I was on the brink of an emotional breakdown, and I knew I had to get my life back on track. I gave in and signed the NDA. Looking back, I regret it. I wasn't in the proper state of mind to make such an important decision.
The next day, I asked to be released. I said they knew I didn't want an NDA, that I had said no enough times, and that I was pressured into signing it. I was not released.
I was asked to sign an NDA to settle a sexual harassment complaint in my workplace. I didn't have a choice. The terms were presented to me and I wasn't allowed to change them. I needed the financial settlement because I'd lost my job due to discrimination, so I felt I had to sign.
Signing it caused me mental health issues and made me feel like I didn't matter. I struggled starting new employment as I have to lie a lot about the past employer.
Having to sign an NDA was the first time I felt helpless, hopeless, and powerless. It was a feeling worse for me than the 1.5 years of sexual harassment I endured from my employer. I lost my job, I lost my voice, I became jaded and distrustful of all people in positions of power.
Universities that use NDAs to silence victims of sexual harassment only care about protecting their reputation and assets. He was the dean and is still a tenured professor. Most importantly, I learned that I don't matter.
I felt silenced, disempowered, and swept under the rug by the first NDA I signed. When I chose voice and refused to sign an NDA in the second situation, it meant further public attacks on my credibility. The confidentiality agreement still hangs over my head as a threat. NDAs are still seen as normal trade-off by lawyers.
I am a survivor of childhood physical and sexual abuse. After running away at 14 and not returning, I lived my life alone. Everyone knows about the abuse. It was only me who did not agree to forget about it. I'm not allowing this to go quietly into the archives. Canadian law is going to have to fix this one. My case is still before the courts. I would love to be the first person released from the NDA in Canada.